What if you could have a metal palette and put your Gansai Tambi watercolors in them? And what if you could have a regular metal palette and put watercolor in pans the same size as the Gansai Tambi pans? Well, guess what? You can. I'm going to put links in the description for everything that I show and describe to you. Okay, here's the metal palette. It comes with 48 half pans and some 3M magnetic stickers. I put away the half pans for later and gave the magnetic stickers to my husband. Now, here are the Gansai Tambi size pans. They're exactly the same size as my Kuretake Gansai Tambi pans. If you don't want to pour your own watercolors in them and you have Kuretake Gansai Tambi paints, 14 of them will easily fit in here. So if you're working on a project that will take longer than one sitting, you can keep them together and organized and covered. Now I used mounting putty, also known as tack or blue tack or poster tack, to adhere the pans to the palette tray because I tried the magnetic stickers and the pans still moved around a lot. But I knew I'm using the Gorilla brand and it is so sticky. Once the pans are down good, it's a real effort to pull them out. They're not going anywhere until I pull them out. I also used a label maker to label the pans. You'll notice that I used a lot of Mission Gold paint in this palette. I actually love it. And if you're just getting started in watercolor, Amazon usually has a very nice pure pigment set of 24 15 milliliter tubes plus 2 small black and white tubes for about $85 US. That's about $3.55 a tube, which is great, especially since it's not student grade paint. It's beautiful. And if you are done with the experimental stage of watercolor and you know you want to stick with it, this is just a great set. It has all the heavy hitters in it. The first color I'm going to put in this palette is green gold. That's what Mission Gold calls it. Most other brands call it nickel azo yellow. It's PY150, and in Mission Gold, M-Gram, and QOR, it's very, very luminous. However, I didn't put M-Gram in this palette because it dries too slowly, and these pans are going to have about 7.5 milliliters of paint in them. So I don't like Daniel Smith's version of this. This color can be, and with Mission Gold, M-Gram, and QOR, is very luminous, bright. It stands out well on its own by itself, and it's also a fabulous mixing color. It is, bar none, a color that I have on every single one of my palettes. I use it all the time. It's my primary yellow for mixing. The next color I'm going to put on my palette is Yellow Ochre number 2 by Mission Gold, and it's PY42. It's just a mellow earth yellow, and it's good for mixing, and it's good for landscapes, flowers, foliage. It makes nice greens, and it kind of mellows out the palette a little bit. This yellow ochre is not quite as opaque as a lot of yellow ochres, but it's a fairly opaque yellow. Mission Gold does tend to have a little bit more binder separation than some of the brands of paint that I've used, but Daniel Smith also has a lot of binder separation. If that happens to you, don't be troubled by it. Just in this case, I'm pouring out so much that I'm stirring it in the pan. But if you have a lot of binder separation, take that stir stick and just stir the paint while it's still in the tube, and it'll take care of that for you. My next color is Permanent Yellow Deep, PY65. In other brands, they call it different things, from Derylite Yellow to Hansa Yellow Deep, but PY65 is the pigment code, and it's a beautiful, vibrant, bright, warm yellow. It's great for mixing oranges and some greens, more earthy greens, believe it or not, and I just love it. This is another one. I have something like it on my palette generally every time. Not always PY65, but that's what was in the Mission Gold set, and I do really like it. My next color is Daniel Smith's Quinacridone Coral, and it's Pigment PR209. It's kind of a weird red because it's cool, but it's warm also. It's the warmest red I have in here. I tend to prefer cooler reds because I like to mix yellows in to warm them up rather than, I don't know, warm reds often are a little opaque, like PR254. I don't care for that. So this is an interesting color for mixing, and it's actually really pretty on its own. It's great for florals and just a general mixing color. I think it's great for landscapes. I do use it quite a lot, even though I don't paint landscapes. I use it in my compositions a lot. The next color is Quinacridone Permanent Rose, and it's very cool, kind of like Daniel Smith's and Winsor Newton's Permanent Rose and Quinacridone Rose. It's about the same hue. This is one of those, the PV19 is one of those pigments that they can really manipulate a lot. So you can see PV19 and it's not the same color depending on how they manufacture it. Some pigments are very consistent. This one is not one of them. It varies wildly. So I'm very particular about what brands I use for a rose color like this. I love M. Graham, but theirs is just a little bit too, it's too warm. It doesn't get purple enough for me when I mix it with blues. But the Mission Gold and Winsor & Newton and Daniel Smith all have beautiful roses. Next I have Mission Gold's Quinacridone Permanent Magenta, and it's PR122. This is the magenta you would put on a CMYK palette. It's beautiful. And this is a pigment that is fairly consistent across the board, depending, on all the brands. And it came in this set, so I'm using it. But I also really like QOR's Quinacridone Magenta. And M. Graham now has Quinacridone Magenta, and it's very beautiful. Quinacridone Magenta makes beautiful violets and purples. It's beautiful on its own, and it's really good for florals, but it's also just the perfect magenta mixing color. It's another one that I if I don't have it on, then I have a permanent rose, but I like to have both. This next color is kind of an outlier. I didn't even know about it, and I sort of knew about it, but I didn't really start using it a lot until this year. It's I'm using Winsor & Newton Perylene Violet, and it's PV29, and it's a very earthy violet kind of. It's a very good shadow color, and it mixes very interesting colors and grays and shadows, and I've come to use it quite a lot lately. It's not a color I would necessarily recommend to beginners, saying you have to have it. I used to keep dioxazine purple on my palette all the time, but I can really mix purple pretty easily. And, this violet kind of replaced the dioxazine violet on my palette for shadows. I think it's just a little richer, and it adds a little bit of nuance to my paintings. Next is Mission Gold's Ultramarine Light PB29, and it's a garden variety ultramarine blue. It's beautiful. But I find that most ultramarine blues are really beautiful. I like this one. It kind of reminds me of Schmincke's Ultramarine Finest. It isn't as heavily granulating, and I prefer that. I know a lot of people really like granulating colors, but I kind of like the ones that stain more and lift less. That's just my preference. This next color is one that I've had kind of, I haven't really liked it, but I found that the QOR brand was better for me. Anyway, this is Indanthrone Blue PB60. And it's more of like a middle blue. It's not really cool. It's not really warm. It's right in the middle. And it's also a really good mixing color for greens. It also mixes some very interesting purples too. This color is also a staple on my palette. I have it on every single palette. It's Mission Gold calls it Cerulean Blue, but it's really Phthalo Blue, PB15 or PB15:3. It's the greener shade of Phthalo Blue. It's going to be your cyan in the CMYK color palette. And if I only had 3 colors, it would be the Nickel Azo Yellow, the Permanent Magenta, and Phthalo Blue Green shade, because you can mix virtually everything with those. I'd also like to have a black or a neutral tint with that, because that can deepen and give you more value. But this is just a color I think belongs on every palette. I'm a big Phthalo Blue advocate. Mission Gold calls this color Viridian, but it's PG7, so it's really phthalo green. It's a great mixing color for mixing deep greens, dark green foliage. It's beautiful. It's also really good for making turquoise, and I have it almost on all of my palettes. I wouldn't say every single palette, but most of the time I have it, because you can mix virtually any green with it, depending on the yellow that you use, and it's just a great staple. Authentic Viridian tends to granulate a little bit, and it doesn't have the tinting strength. Next is DaVinci Perylene Green. It's PBK 31, so technically it's a black, but it's really green. It's really an awesome forest color. It's good for deep greens, for foliage. It's great for shadows. It's a really good complement to Perylene Violet, and I find that I'm using it more and more on my palette. The Mission Gold doesn't have Perylene Green in this set, and I'm actually not sure if they make one. But the DaVinci one is really good. Also, Winsor & Newton makes a beautiful Perylene Green. I debated a lot on this next one. It's Burnt Sienna No. 2 by Mission Gold, and instead of the brown pigment 7, it's a PR 102, which is a red pigment. And I compared it with the brands that I have of Burnt Sienna that has the brown pigment, and it looks very, very similar. So I decided I wanted to give it a try and really get to know it, because I have a feeling it's going to add a slightly different nuance to the palette, and I think I'm going to like it, but we'll find out. I'm going to compare it to the other Burnt Sienna that I have and let you decide what you would have put in your palette. Okay, here's the last one, and this is a recent discovery too. It's Schmincke Payne's Gray, and it has a mix of PR 101, PB29, and PBK7. It's what I'm using for neutral tint now. It's very, very neutral. It's my black or neutral. It's great for shadows. Surprisingly, it doesn't granulate so much, and it is probably the most neutral color that I've ever found. It doesn't lean blue. It doesn't lean toward the magenta. It's not a brownish. It's just straight up gray. And I love it. Schmincke is kind of expensive here in the States. And so it's not a brand I use. I go out and buy tubes of usually. But I made an exception for this one because it's so neutral. And it stains just the right amount where it'll stay down, but not so much that if you just breathe on it, it's down for life. You have a couple seconds to work with it, where some things, like a lot of Payne's grays, are so staining that if even a drop gets on your paper off of your brush, it's there. And this isn't like that. Okay, everything is poured, so I just want to show you this little tray. It came without any of those rails for the pans. It's just flat. And I've been looking for something like this for a long time because I wanted to experiment with this. And I'm so glad that I found it. I think this is really going to be fun. This paint box reminds me a lot of the Schmincke box that I have. And boy, it's heavy with all that paint in it. I took the flap that covers over off of it because I don't use that when I'm using one of these really big boxes. This is one that would hold 48 half pans. And I think it's very compact for what all is in it. Pretty excited to use it. I've named this palette the Big Bertha palette with huge pans, and I think this is going to be awesome. Look at that. It's starting to dry a little bit. It's been out for a couple of days. I left the lid on for a couple of hours this afternoon, and it's starting to dry up a little bit. So let's go ahead and get started. My first one is going to be M. Graham's, they call it green gold, and it's PY 150. It really has dried since this afternoon. I'm going to give it a little bit because it can get pretty deep actually. All right, there we go. That's PY 150. All right, now here's the yellow ochre. Mission Gold, Yellow Ochre 2, PY 142. I'm sorry, PY 42, not 142. And you can see it's a little bit more opaque. It doesn't move a lot. And here's Mission Gold. Ooh, this is not as dry. This is Mission Gold PY 65. I got a little bit too much on there, for sure. Okay, let's just draw it out a little bit. And it is a little bit more opaque than like the first yellow there, which is very, very, very transparent. Okay, so then the next color is Daniel Smith's Quinacridone Coral, and it is PR 209. And if you notice, it's warm, but it's also kind of cool. Like where it's more concentrated, it's more warm. But when you water it down, it's cooler. It's really pretty. Now this is Quinacridone Permanent Rose by Mission Gold. And it moves, but it doesn't move a whole lot. It's a beautiful rose. Okay, and we're going to do Mission Gold PR 122, which is Quinacridone Permanent Magenta. And you'll see that it is the perfect magenta for a CMYK palette. All right, now we're going to do Winsor & Newton Perylene Violet, which is PB29. And it is just almost a maroon violet. It's kind of an earthy, and look at it move. Isn't that beautiful? All right, I'm going to draw it out just a little bit so we can see what it looks like thinned out. I like to be able to see what I'm working on, so I can see the labels from this side. Okay, and this is Mission Gold's Ultramarine Light, or PB29. I'm curious to see, I remember it not granulating as much as, say, Daniel Smith or M. Graham or Winsor & Newton. I seem to remember it being a little bit more like Schmincke's Ultramarine Finest, which is, it granulates but just not quite as much. It's a little finer grind of it, I guess. Okay, and then this is QOR's Indanthrone Blue PB60, the middle blue. This is a pigment that I've not really enjoyed, but oh, look at that. The QOR brand of this seems to go on smoother and less gritty. I mean, to my experience, it can go on kind of gritty. It's supposed to be a staining color, and I had M. Graham's version of this and did not like it. And I think that I tried Winsor & Newton. It was a little bit better. But QOR's, see, it does look much. It doesn't look pit. It doesn't have the pits in it. It's not supposed to granulate. My experience has been that it kind of pits or does something weird. So I'm hopeful that the QOR brand, because it is an interesting pigment. It makes pretty mixes. Okay, this is Mission Gold's. They call it Cerulean Blue. It's basically Phthalo Blue PB15:3. And it moves a little bit, not a lot. Here we go. Help it out a little bit. All right, so here is M grams. They call it Viridian, but it's really phthalo green. It's PG7, and true Viridian, authentic Viridian, doesn't have the tinting strength and that phthalo green does, but they're very similar in color. And of course the phthalo green does not granulate. Authentic Viridian does. Phthalo green is non-toxic, and Viridian has chromium in it, I believe. Ooh, I'm shedding. And so it's a heavy metal. I think really out of all of these, the only one that is quote-unquote toxic is the PY150. It has nickel in it. I've never found it to irritate my skin or anything. And I, watercolor is different than, I think, other mediums because you water it down so much. I'm not as opposed to using watercolors that have heavy metals or something in it, but I'm careful with it. Okay, the next one is DaVinci's Perylene Green, which is PBK 31. It's a really deep, dark, rich green. Technically it's a black pigment, but it's very green if you look at it. Makes beautiful mixes, and it's even beautiful on its own. It's kind of a gray, shadowy green. Okay. Okay, and here is Mission Gold's Burnt Sienna 2, which is made with PR102, which is a red pigment. It's an earth pigment. And I'm going to compare it with M grams in just a moment when I get everything swatched out. Okay. You see it's very orange. It's an orange brown. Okay, the next color is Schmincke's Payne's Gray. It is so neutral. Really love it. It's pretty. It looks like black, but it's gray. It's got some black in it. Just there we go. All right, it has PR101, PB29, and PBK7. So it's basically, it's got red oxide, ultramarine blue, and I think lamp black is PBK7. Anyway, So, but as you can see, it's really, really neutral. It doesn't go any other color. And I'm going to show you some of the other options for these two that I had considered. All right, I've prepared some alternatives here just so we can compare. This is Daniel Smith's Burnt Sienna, and it's PBR7. And it looks very much like the one I put on my palette from Mission Gold, although it's a little like redder, maybe, where this is the Mission Gold definitely looks more brownish. I'm always surprised when I compare stuff. It's always a good idea to compare what other people, you don't necessarily have to buy it yourself, but it's a good idea to do your homework and before you invest. All right, now this is M. Graham's Burnt Sienna, and it is also PBR7. And it looks a little browner to my eyes than the Daniel Smith, and a little bit like almost right in between these two in hue. So this is what I put in. These are the ones I put in the palette. These were the alternatives that I was considering, and I think actually M. Graham is my favorite burnt sienna. And if I really don't like this as well, then maybe I'll put it in. I've got extra of these tubes, these pans, and I could maybe put it in there, but I'm really going to give this a shot, and really, it looked interesting to me. So, and I think a lot of, if you looked at maybe even Schmincke, I'm not sure Schmincke's Burnt Sienna isn't a PBR color. Maybe mixed with lamp black or something. Okay, now this is QOR's neutral tint. It leans to my eyes very, very blue. It looks a lot like Payne's Gray to me, but it's not. This is the neutral tint, and it has PY42, so it's got a yellow ochre in it, and it's got PR122, so it's got a magenta in it, and then it has PB153, which is phthalo blue. And to my eyes, it leans really, really blue, like a Payne's Gray. And compared to this is very, very neutral. Now I'm going to show you M. Graham's neutral tint. And it's very different still. It's made with PV19 and PGR7. So basically a quinacridone rose type of color and phthalo green. And it leans very on the purple to me, or magenta, or it's just purpley. The other thing I love about M. Graham is just how doggone dynamic it is, how it moves. But I don't love this hue that much. So the interesting thing is when you look at the colors with the pigments that they put in the Schmincke Payne's Gray here, in this Schmincke Payne's Gray, they've used 2 granulating pigments. PR101 is an earth red. It's a red oxide. That's granulating. PB29 is ultramarine blue. It's granulating. And PBK7, which is a black. And it doesn't appear to granulate at all. It's so smooth. And it stains a little bit, but not horribly, but enough to stay down when it's dry. For the most part, I mean, you can lift it a little bit, but if you like to layer like I do, it stays down. And then this core neutral tint, look at that. Does that not look like Payne's gray to you? That to me, it's a blue purple kind of to me. Now the neutral tint is more, it's purpley, but it's like a shadowy purple. More black than purple, I don't know, but it definitely leans that direction. So, and then these were the alternatives here for the burnt sienna. Now the rest of these colors, aside from the fact that I really like M. Graham and Mission Gold and Core in the PY150, Daniel Smith is one I don't love in that pigment. It's interesting. Okay, so that's the swatching, and this is the palette, and I think that this is going to be a lot of fun to use. And also I wanted to show you, it came with one of these, but there's a little rod here that you can, it just fits in there like that, and then it goes through all of the channels. But I don't care for it on a palette this big. So I save it in case someday I want it, or in case I wanted, you know, somebody else ends up with this palette someday, they may want that. I don't want it, so I'll put it away in a drawer and keep it. And meanwhile, this is the palette. I think it's going to be fun to use. Thanks for watching, you guys. I'm glad you were here with me. Be sure and leave a comment if there's anything you wanted to say about this palette or the choices of colors. I'd be very interested to hear. And I will see you guys in the next video. Toodles, bye!